Arrival Day in Guyana is a national celebration. It commemorates the combination and the culmination of events which led to the creation of this nation, the very creation of this nation. It is the face of the population and the foundation of society. Portuguese Arrival Day was observed 2 days ago on the 3rd of May to mark the arrival of the first indentured immigrants from the Madeira Islands in 1835, 3 years before the Indians came. Chinese Arrival Day was observed on the 12th of January to mark the arrival of the first Chinese migrants in 1853. Indian Arrival Day is observed on the 5th of May, today, to mark the arrival of the first Indian immigrants in 1838. Arrival Day is a national holiday, and the Minister of Public Security has given us permission to have the day off tomorrow. So you can enjoy yourselves today. This national holiday coincides with the observance of Indian Arrival Day, the inauguration of the Indian Immigration Monument in the East Berbice quarantine region, and the observance of these arrival days are the reasons for jubilation and the reasons for our being here today. Arrival Day celebrates the contributions of all of our peoples, Amerindians, Africans, Asians, and Europeans. Our nation was established on the foundation of their sacrifices and successes. Arrival Day recognizes the nation's diversity. It signifies the creation of a conglomeration of cultures. The nation is multicultural and always will be. And each culture enriches national integration despite the differences in our people's origins. Multiculturalism has overcome historic challenges. All ethnic groups, particularly after the emancipation of the enslaved Africans in 1838, were brought together in a common geographic space. Little attention was paid by those who brought us together to how these various groups with different cultures would coexist cohesively. It is the challenge of the present generation to overcome those differences and to continue to construct a cohesive country. The nation cannot develop to its full capacity and potential unless it harnesses the capacity of the entire population. Conditions have to be created to ensure that our peoples could live together in harmony. It is for this reason that we are pursuing the realization of a cohesive state in which all of our people will be recognized and respected. A cohesive state is vital to ensuring a sustainable, safe, and secure environment, one in which present and future generations could be happy. It is essential to protecting the legacy of past generations. This region, the East Berbice quarantine region, is an especially favorable location for these celebrations. Its population is cosmopolitan, with large African, Indian, and East Indian communities, along with persons of Chinese and European descent. It is reflective of the country's main ethnic groups, the descendants of people from the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Europe. This region is the location where Indian indentured immigrants first set foot on Guyanese soil at Plantation Highbury. It is in this region that many immigrants, after the end of their contracts of indenture, chose to remain and live alongside other ethnic groups. Indian indentured immigration to British Guyana was not a unique imperial invention. It was part of two waves of labor exports in the 19th century. And in the first 3 decades of the 20th century, a project initiated by the British Empire. Indian indentured immigrants, numbering almost 1.3 million, were contracted to work on plantations in the British, Dutch, and French colonies. Here in British Guyana, in Dutch Guyana, now Suriname, in French Guyana, in Fiji, in Grenada, in Guadeloupe, in Jamaica, in Kenya, in Martinique, Mauritius, South Africa, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, the Seychelles, South Africa, Trinidad and Tobago, and Uganda. Hundreds of thousands of Indians were sent to these countries between 1838 and 1917. The second wave, principally to the Southeast Asian countries of Malaya, Myanmar, Singapore, and Sri Lanka, saw over 6 million Indians leaving on the Kangami and Maestri recruitment systems as laborers, and many of their descendants still live in those countries today. Mother India has lost many of her sons and daughters to migration during the days of the Raj. But Mother India could also be proud of the role that its far-flung diaspora, people who left their shores as indentured immigrants and have now become citizens of free states. India, the immigrants and their descendants, and the colonies which received them all benefited from migration, from integration, and in some cases, from miscegenation. Indentured immigration expanded the colonies' labor supply, diversified their economies, and enriched their cultures. It allowed immigrants to improve their well-being and to provide opportunities for their offspring. Remittances were sent from indentured laborers to aid the local Indian economy. Indian indentured immigrants landed first right here in the East Berbice quarantine region 181 years ago on the 5th of May, 1838. They came in search of a good life, but the trickle turned into a torrent. About 240,000 indentured immigrants arrived in British Guyana in the ensuing 8 decades, until the system was abolished in 1917. More than 7 out of every 10 of these immigrants opted to stay and make this country their home. The abolition of Indian indentured immigration intensified migrants' efforts to integrate more fully into our multi-ethnic society. Indians already shared a common space with other ethnic groups with whom they had sought and enjoyed respectful relations. Harmonious relations were aided by the religious and cultural conventions and practices of tolerance among our ethnic groups. I've never heard of a religious riot in Guyana, and I don't think there ever will be one. The chair was led by the Minister of Public Security. These conventions allowed Indians and non-Indians to mingle, to mix, and to make the most of this country's economic opportunities. India's continuing and current concern for its diaspora is reflected today in its decision to support the construction of this magnificent memorial, the Indian Immigration Monument. Indian Arrival Day is commemorated today with the unveiling of this grand monument dedicated to the memory of Indian indentured immigrants whose exertions contributed to building this nation of Guyana. We are richer for their arrival and for their remaining here. Guyana applauds and thanks the government of India for its contribution and for its collaboration on this project and for the donation of these splendid sculptures. This Indian Immigration Monument symbolizes the ties of blood and history between Guyana and India. This monument site is a shrine to Indian immigration and to the migrants' adoption and adaptation to their new homeland. Monuments represent the experiences of peoples and nations. They are witnesses to history and reflections of the people's culture. They exalt the values which societies hold dear. They preserve our heritage and inspire future generations. This monument not only casts an eye backwards to our past, but can also help us to advance towards a common future, a future for all our peoples. This monument is a concrete reminder of the journeys of arrival and the continuing journey towards a society characterized by human dignity and material progress. The protection and preservation of the family, as this monument depicts, is central to that continuing journey. The Indian Arrival Monument recalls the Indian indentured experience. It celebrates the migrants' resistance, resilience, and resourcefulness. It attests to the migrants' sacrifices, struggle, and the pursuit of a good life. Indians have made an indelible contribution to this nation's cultural, economic, political, and social development. This contribution has ensured the community's progress and has advanced the nation's development. It has added to the nation's wealth. Indians, as others before them, were confronted with the abuse, the cruelty, and the domination of plantation life. And they resisted, sometimes by riots and strikes. Our coastland is littered with memorials to the martyrs of plantation riots at Devonshire Castle, Enmore, Rose Hall, and other sites yet unmarked, at Leonora, Nonpareil, Newtonsville, Rheinveld, and elsewhere. Places and plantations where Indian laborers were killed. We must not forget their sacrifice. Indians protested and were punished, but they persevered. They explored avenues of economic enterprise off the plantations when their indentures ended, as did the Africans, Portuguese, and Chinese before them. Resistance culminated eventually in the decision to abolish indentured immigration in 1917. Indian contributions to the economy are unquestionable. Indians who began arriving even before the abolition of African enslavement in 1838 became eventually the main source of labor in the sugar and rice industries. They've helped to sustain these pillars of our economy for more than 180 years. Indian resourcefulness contributed also to the diversification of the rural economy through the development of cattle rearing, cash crop and coconut cultivation, paddy growing, rice milling, and fishing. Village economies and settlements, and Indian skills as bakers, boatmen, charcoal burners, chemists, fishermen, goldsmiths, hucksters, milk and sweetmeat vendors, shopkeepers and tailors. Skills they brought from India helped to reshape the Guyanese rural economic and social landscape. Indians, to a significant degree, became a considerable commercial and landowning class after they quit the plantations. Some, through thrift and industry, became part of a thriving business elite. Some opened new areas of production along the banks of rivers and creeks and in the islands of the Essequibo River. Many acquired land and established villages and communities. Their economic enterprise expanded the economy and generated a demand for education and skills. The descendants of Indian immigrants distinguished themselves in every field of human endeavor. Many excelled in academia and agriculture, accounting, the arts, business, diplomacy, education, engineering, law enforcement, legal services, medicine, military service, politics, public service, sport, and trade unionism. Indians who have enriched every sector of society include academics like Clem C. Chiran and Rupert Rupnarayan, attorneys Edward Laku and Stanley Hardial, businessmen Satar Gafur and Laila Kissoon, diplomats Sir Sridhat Ramphal, Salayan Laku, doctors Balwant Singh and Deborah Prasad, trade unionists Ayub Eden and Joseph Lachman Singh, public servants Eshwar Prasad and Lloyd Sewar, religious leaders Ripudaman Prasad, Faisal Feroz, Benedict Singh, cultural champions Rajkumari Singh, Lakshmi Kalicharan, and sportsmen Rohan Kanai and Shivnarayan Chandapal, all of whom are excellent examples of Guyanese of Indian descent who attained eminence in professional and public life. Indians are integral to our multicultural state. They, together with other ethnic groups, have generated the cultural, economic, and social diversity we recognize today as the Guyanese nation. They've contributed to a common culture, a culture of tolerance and mutual respect, which has laid the basis today for the creation of a more cohesive and inclusive state. Indians are integral to our inclusive future and always will be. Development will be retarded unless every citizen feels a sense of belonging and enjoys equality of opportunity. An inclusive future involves increased integration. It is predicated on respectful relations among all of our peoples. Guyana's future must be one in which our children and grandchildren could live in a cohesive state, one in which they could enjoy a good life, which our forefathers sought. Cultural retention played a pivotal role in Indian resilience and in facilitating their integration in their new homeland. Indians, finding themselves in a strange land, recreated familiar situations in their new homeland. They celebrated festivals and created villages patterned after the rural villages from which they came. They shared a strong sense of solidarity by retaining their dance, as you saw today, their dress, their faith, their festivals, their food, which I hope we will soon enjoy, their language, music, and social traditions. Mandirs, masjids, and churches were erected to reinforce their religious beliefs, to retain their rituals, and to strengthen communal ties. Guyanese share the rich cultural heritage of its immigrants. Their foods, song, festivals, music, religious customs, and traditions have been preserved, protected, and today are enjoyed by all. Guyanese share in an expanding economy with enhanced opportunities in education and in employment. They belong to a country in which their children are encouraged to achieve their full potential, in which their communities are being enhanced and their properties are protected. The economic sectors in which they work are being enhanced and consolidated. Indian resilience was replenished by continuous contact with Mother India, which was always there to the indentured immigrants, despite the distance of nearly 15,000 kilometers which separate their motherland from their adopted homeland. And despite the passage of decades of time, Indian immigrants maintain a keen interest in the developments taking place in India and Pakistan, especially after independence and partition in 1947. India, after independence, set out on a policy of maintaining ties with its diaspora. It continued to dispatch religious leaders and envoys to preserve those relations. The challenges faced by Indian migrant families mirror those of other ethnic groups in our country's history. Each group, however, was able to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles and odds and to make their respective contributions to the development of Guyana. Guyanese today are heirs of the precious legacy of all of our African, Amerindian, Asian, and European foreparents. The strands of the national tapestry are stronger because of these contributions. We must preserve this precious multicultural heritage by working together to secure a common future where all are recognized and respected and where everyone could enjoy the country's bounty. Arrival Day and Indian Arrival Day both commit us to continue to work together for a good life. Happy Arrival Day, and may God bless you all.